A Search in Secret India by Paul Brunton, Chapter 4, I Meet a Messiah. I am pleased to see you, is the somewhat conventional greeting with which I am received by Meher Baba. He is destined, had I but known it, to flash like a meteorite across the western sky, and to rouse the curiosity of millions of people in Europe and America. Moreover, like a meteorite, he will fall ingloriously to earth. I am the first Western journalist to interview him, for I track him down to his Indian abode when he is almost unknown to more than local fame. I have become acquainted with one of his chief disciples, and after some correspondence wonder what manner of man has joined the ranks of self-appointed deliverers of mankind. 2 Parsi disciples come to Bombay to escort me. Before we leave the city, they inform me that it is necessary to make a present of choice flowers and fruits to their master. So we proceed to the bazaar, and they collect a large hamper of these commodities on my behalf. Our train arrives at Ahmednagar the next morning, after traveling through the night. I remember it as the historical place where the cruel Emperor Aurangzeb, preserver of the faith and ornament of the Mughal throne, stroked his heavy beard for the last time, for death caught him here in his tent. A rackety old wartime Ford car, which does duty for the transport needs of Meher Baba's retreats, waits for us at the station. The 7-mile run which follows takes us through flat country. An avenue of neem trees lines part of the road. We pass a village whose huddled brown roofs rise against the elaborate little spire of the local temple. Then I see a stream whose banks are lined with pink and yellow flowers, and whose muddy waters buffaloes are blissfully resting. We arrive at Meher Baba's curious colony, which is spread out in scattered erections. 3 odd-looking stone structures, which I learn later are the remnants of a dismantled army campsite, stand in a field. 3 plain wooden bungalows stand in an adjacent one. A quarter of a mile away is a little village whose name is given as Arangaon. Arangaon. The whole place presents a bare appearance and seems half deserted. My Parsi escorts are at pains to inform me that this is only the country headquarters of their master, and that his principal center is near the town of Nasik, Nasik, where the majority of his intimate disciples reside and where visitors are usually received. A few men emerge from one of the bungalows as we pass. They lounge on the veranda, smile and gesticulate, and seem pleased at the arrival of a European in their midst. We cross a field and reach a queer-looking structure, which is nothing less than an artificial cave. It is built of stones and rubble cemented together, and it's about 8 feet deep. It faces due south and receives the bright morning sunlight full into its interior. I look around and see the rolling expanse of fields, the ring of hills which bounds the horizon on the east, and the tree-shaded village down in a hollow. This Parsi holy man is doubtless a great lover of nature, for he has set his retreat in a scene of aloof, untroubled peace. I am indeed glad to find such a quiet backwater after the whirl of Bombay life. 2 men stand on guard like sentries outside the cave's entrance. They move at our approach and go inside to consult their master. "Put out your cigarette," whispers one of my escorts. Baba does not like smoking. I throw the offending cigarette away. A minute later, I'm conducted into the august presence of the so-called new Messiah. He squats at the far end of the cavern, the entire floor of which is covered with a beautifully patterned Persian rug. He proves to be somewhat different from the person I have imagined. His eyes do not penetrate me, his facial expression lacks strength, and although I'm aware of something aesthetic, unworldly, and gentle in his atmosphere, I wonder why I feel no responsive thrill, such as one may reasonably expect to feel in the presence of one who proposes to win the allegiance of millions of people. He is clothed in a long, spotless white robe, which looks ludicrously like an old English nightshirt. His amiable and kindly face is framed in chestnut-colored hair, which falls in long curly waves to his neck. I am struck by the soft, silky texture of the hair, which is remarkably like the hair of a woman. His nose rises into arched prominence and then descends into aquiline depth. His eyes are dark, medium-sized, and clear, but I find them unimpressive. A heavy brown mustache stretches across his upper lip. The light-tinted olive skin betrays his Persian origin, for his father hails from the land of the Shahs. Withal, he is young, apparently somewhere in his 30s. A final feature which remains in memory is his forehead. It is so low as to appear less than average height, and is so receding as to make me wonder, do brain areas carry qualitative significance? Does a man's forehead indicate his powers of thought? But possibly a Messiah is above such physical limitations. I am pleased to see you, he remarks, but not, mind you, in the usual manner of human speech, for he holds a small alphabet board above his lap and points rapidly with his index finger to one letter after another. As the words are spelt out in this dumb pantomime manner, his secretary interprets them aloud for my benefit. Since the 10th of July, 1925, the holy man has not uttered a single word. His younger brother tells me that when the new Messiah breaks into speech, his message will startle the world. Meanwhile, he adopts a pose of strict silence. Still fingering the board, Meher Baba makes some kindly inquiries as to my personal well-being, asks questions about my life, and expresses his gratification at my interest in India. He possesses an excellent knowledge of English, so there is no necessity to translate my speech. He postpones till late afternoon the lengthy interview which I request. Food and rest are your immediate needs, he says, or rather communicates. I adjourn to one of the stone structures. It possesses a bare, gloomy interior, but contains an old bedstead without bedding, a ramshackle table and chair, which might have rendered good service during the Indian Mutiny. Here I am to make my home for nearly a week. I peer through the glassless window and am rewarded by the view of sparse, untilled fields, stretching away into scrub brush, dotted with cactus. 4 hours creep lethargically around my watch. Once again I sit upon the Persian rug face to face with Meher Baba, whose colossal claim is that he is destined to give spiritual light and practical leading to the whole of mankind. I have yet to investigate. He puts his claim into the first sentence, which he flicks out on the alphabet board. I shall change the history of the whole world. My note-taking disturbs him, however. Can you not make your notes after you leave me? I agree, and henceforth inscribe his words upon the pages of memory. As Jesus came to impart spirituality to a materialistic age, so I have come to impart a spiritual push to present-day mankind. There is always a fixed time for such divine workings, and when the hour is ripe, I shall reveal my true nature to the world. The great teachers of religion, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, and Zoroaster, do not differ in their essential doctrines. All these prophets came from God. The chief commandments run through all their teachings like a golden thread. These divine ones came out into public when their help was most needed, when spirituality was at its lowest ebb, and materialism was apparently everywhere victorious. Such a time we are fast approaching at present. The whole world is now enmeshed in sensual desires, in racial selfishness, and money worship. God is forsaken. True religion is abused. Man seeks life, and the priests usually give him a stone. God, therefore, must send his true prophet among men once again to establish true worship and to awaken people out of their materialistic stupor. But I follow in the line of those earlier prophets. This is my mission. God has given me a mandate. I listen quietly while the secretary voices these amazing assertions. I keep my mind open and critical and offer no mental resistance. This is not to say that I accept them, however, but that I am aware one must know how to listen among these Orientals. Otherwise, a Westerner will get little for his pains, even where there might be something worthy of acceptance. Truth can stand a ruthless investigation, but the methods of the Occident must be modified to suit the mental atmosphere of the Orient. Meher Baba smiles genially at me and then proceeds. The prophets lay down certain rules and regulations to help the masses lead better lives and to incline them towards God. Gradually, these rules become the tenets of an organized religion, but the idealistic spirit and motive force which prevailed during the founder's lifetime disappear gradually after his death. This is why organizations cannot bring spiritual truth nearer, and why true religion is always a personal concern. Religious organizations become like archaeological departments, trying to resuscitate the past. Therefore, I shall not attempt to establish any new religion, cult, or organization, but I shall rejuvenate the religious thoughts of all people, instill a higher understanding of life into them. Dogmas, invented centuries after the founder's death, frequently differ startlingly, but the fundamentals of all religions are really the same, because all issue from the same source, God. Therefore, when I appear publicly, I shall run down no existing religion, but then I shall not uphold any special one. I want to turn men's minds away from sectarian differences so that they will agree on essential truths. Remember, though, that every prophet considers the times, the circumstances, and the prevailing mentality of the people before his public manifestation. He therefore preaches doctrines best understood and best suited to such conditions. Meher Baba pauses for a while to let these exalted ideas soak into my head, and then his words take a new turn. Have you not noticed how all the nations have been brought into quick communication with each other during this modern epoch? Do you not see how railroads, steamships, telephones, cables, wireless, and newspapers have caused the whole world to become a closely woven unit? An important event which happens in one country is made known within a day to the people of a country 10,000 miles away. Therefore, a man who wishes to deliver an important message can find almost the whole of mankind is a ready audience. For all that there is For all that there is a sound reason, the time is soon coming to give mankind a universal spiritual belief, which will serve all races of people in all countries. In other words, the way is being prepared to enable me to deliver a worldwide message. This breathtaking announcement indicates sufficiently that Meher Baba possesses an unlimited faith in his own future, and indeed his whole manner confirms this. In his own estimation, his stock will one day stand at infinitely more than par. But when shall you tell the world about your mission, I ask. I shall break my silence and deliver my message only when there is chaos and confusion everywhere, for then I shall be most needed, when the world is rocking in upheavals, earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions, when both East and West are aflame with war. Truly, the whole world must suffer, for the whole world must be redeemed. Do you know the date of this war? Yes, it is not far off, but I do not wish to reveal the date. That is a terrible prophecy, I exclaim. Meher Baba spreads out his thin, tapering fingers apologetically. It is. The war will be terrible in its nature, because scientific ingenuity will make it more intense than the last war. However, it will only last a short time, a few months, and at its worst, I shall make myself publicly known, declare my mission to the entire world. By my material efforts and spiritual powers, I shall speedily bring the conflict to an abrupt end, thus restoring peace to all nations. Yet great natural changes must take place on this planet simultaneously. Life and property in different parts of the globe will suffer. If I play the role of a Messiah, it will be because the world conditions require it. Be assured that I shall not leave my spiritual work undone. His secretary, a short, dusky man who wears the round black cap of the Maratha people, looks at me impressively after he finishes speaking the last word. The expression on his face seems to say, "There, how do you like that? You see what important things we know here?" His master's fingers begin to move across the board once more, and he hastens to tell me their new import. After the war will come a long era of unique peace, a time of world tranquility. Disarmament will then no longer be a matter of mere talk, but an actual fact. Racial and communal strife will cease. Sectarian, but an actual fact. Sectarian hatred between religious organizations will come to an end. I shall travel widely throughout the world, and the nations will be eager to see me. My spiritual message will reach every land, every town, every village even. Universal brotherhood, peace among men, sympathy for the poor and downtrodden, love of God. I shall promote these things. What of India, your own country? In India, I shall not rest till the pernicious caste system is uprooted and destroyed. India became depressed in the scale of nations with the establishment of caste. When the outcasts and the lower castes are elevated, India will find herself to be one of the influential countries of the world. And what of her future? Despite its faults, India is still the most spiritual country in the world. The future will find it the moral leader of all nations. All the great founders of religion were born in the East, and it is to the East that the people must continue to look for spiritual light. I try to visualize the great Western nations sitting at the feet of the meek little brown man, but I fail. Perhaps the white-robed figure squatting in front of me grasps my difficulty, for he adds, The so-called subjection of India is not real subjection. It is of the body and therefore temporary. The soul of the country is deathless and great, and even if outwardly the nation has lost its power. This subtle explanation somewhat eludes my understanding. I return to our earlier theme. We in the West have heard most of the things in your message from other sources. You have nothing new to tell us then? My words can only echo old spiritual truths, but it is my mystic power that will bring a new element into the world's life. Upon this point, I seek to rest my brain. For a while there is silence. I ask no more questions. I turn my head and gaze out of the cave. Far across the quiet fields, a line of hills rises in the distance. In the sky, a pitiless sun scorches man, beast, and earth alike. The minutes pass in this secluded cave, in this unending heat, surrounded by absorbent minds. It's easy to weave grandiose schemes of world reformation, to possess oneself of extravagant religious ideas. But out in the world of reality, amid the hard life of materialistic cities, these things would soon dissipate like mists before the dawning sun. Europe is hard, skeptical, I remark, turning and looking at the new Messiah. How are you going to convince us that you speak with real divine authority? How can you convert unfamiliar peoples to your brand of spiritual belief? The average Westerner will tell you that it's impossible, and very likely he will laugh at you for your pains. Ah, you do not realize how changed the times will be. Maya Baba strokes his slender hands, and then he adds some astounding claims which sound fantastic to Western ears. Yet his manner is quite matter of fact. Once I publicly announce myself as the Messiah, nothing will be able to withstand my power. I shall work open miracles in proof of my mission, at the same time restoring sight to the blind, healing the sick, the maimed, crippled, yes, even raising the dead. These things will be child's play to me. I shall work these miracles because through them, people will everywhere be forced to believe in me, and then believe in my message. These wonders will not be done to satisfy idle curiosity, but to convince the skeptically minded. I hold my breath. The interview has reached the boundary of common sense. My mind begins to falter. We are entering the region of Oriental fantasy. Make no mistake, however, continues the Parsi Messiah. I tell my disciples that these miracles are to be done only for the masses, not for them. I should not care to perform a single wonder, but I know that this will turn the minds of common people to my words. If I shall astonish the peoples of the world with these feats, it will be only because I wish to spiritualize them. Baba has already done marvelous things, breaks in the secretary. I am instantly alert. Such as? I demand quickly. The master smiles self-deprecatingly. Tell him another time, Vishnu, he communicates. I can perform any miracle when necessary. It's easy to one who has reached my divine state. I make a mental note to buttonhole the secretary on the morrow and get some details of these reputed marvels. They will form an interesting part of my investigation. I come as a circumspect inquirer, and every kind of fact will make grist for my mill. There is another interlude of silence. I request the holy man to give me certain information about his career. Tell him that also, Vishnu, he answers, directing me again to his secretary. You will have plenty of opportunity to talk to my disciples since you are staying here for a little while. They can tell you all about the past. The talk drifts into the domain of general matters. Soon after our meeting disperses, the first thing I do, getting on back to my quarters, is to light a cigarette, thus atoning for the one forbidden me, and then watch its fragrant smoke rise erratically upward. And that concludes that part of this chapter 4. Till soon. A Search in Secret India by Paul Brunton. And this is a continuation of chapter 4. I witness a curious spectacle in the early evening. The stars have just begun to twinkle faintly. The day is not quite dead, and in this queer half-light, a few oil lanterns glow palely. Meyer sits inside his cave, while a motley crowd composed of disciples, visitors, and people from the nearby village of Arangoa gather in horseshoe fashion around the entrance. A ceremony which is repeated every evening, wherever Meyer may be at that time, is about to take place. A devotee holds aloft a shallow metal bowl which serves as a lamp, its wick being dipped in oil, which is strongly perfumed with sandalwood. He waves it 7 times around the saintly head of his master. The assembled audience thereupon break into a vigorous chorus of chants and prayers. Through the intonations of their Marathi dialect, Mahratti, Marathi dialect, I catch the name of Baba several times. It is obvious that the chants are hyperboles of adulation for their master. Everyone looks at him with adoring eyes. Meyer's younger brother sits at a small portable harmonium and makes a wailing kind of music to accompany the singers. During the course of the ceremony, each devotee files up to the cave in turn, prostrates himself before Meyer, and kisses his uncovered feet. Some are so overwrought with pious emotion that they prolong the act of osculation to a full minute. I am told that this act is deemed extremely beneficial spiritually, since it brings Meyer's blessing upon the devotee and automatically washes away some of his sins. I walk back to my quarters wondering what the next day will bring forth. Somewhere across the fields and out in the jungle, a jackal bays and breaks the night's silence. The next day, I gather the secretary and some of the English-speaking disciples outside one of their wooden bungalows. We sit in a half-circle. Those who do not understand English stand a little distance away and watch us with smiling faces and interested eyes. I proceed to extract from all these collective minds and memories such facts about their amazing master's career as I do not already know. His personal name is Meyer, Meher, but he calls himself Sadguru Meher Baba. Sadguru means perfect master, while Baba is simply a term of affection in common use among some of the Indian peoples, and it is by this name alone that his disciples usually address him. Meher Baba's father is a Persian who is an adherent of the Zoroastrian creed and who emigrated to India as a poor youth. Meyer was his first son, born in 1894 at Pune city. The boy was put to school at 5, proved good at his studies, and passed the matriculation examinations at 17. He then entered the Deccan College, Deccan, in Pune, and received a good modern education for 2 years. Now began the torturous and incomprehensible phase of his career. He was cycling back from school one evening and was about to pass the dwelling place of a well-known Mohammedan woman fakir. Her name was Hazrat Babajan, and she was reputed to be over a century old. She was reclining on a long couch which stood upon a railed veranda outside her humble wooden one-roomed house. When the cycle drew abreast of her, the old woman rose and beckoned to the boy. He dismounted and approached her. She clasped his hands and embraced him, and then kissed his forehead. What happened afterwards is not very clear. I gather that the youth reached his home in a dazed mental state, and that during the following 8 months his mental faculties progressively weakened until he became unable to study properly. In the end, he had to bid a final farewell to his college because he could no longer follow his lessons. Thereafter, young Meyer fell into a semi-idiotic condition and was hardly able to look after himself. His eyes became dull and lifeless, and he lacked the intelligence to perform the most elementary duties of a human being, such as taking food, washing oneself, attending to the calls of nature, and so on. When his father said, "Eat," he took his food in a mechanical manner. Otherwise, he did not understand why the food was put before him. In short, he became a human automaton. A young man of 20 whose parents have to take care of him like a child of 3 seems a case of mental regression, and the distracted father concluded that he had overworked his mind while cramming for an examination. Meyer was taken to various doctors who diagnosed mental breakdown and gave him injections. In 9 months' time, improvement in his lamentable condition set in and gradually increased until he was able to understand his environment intelligently and to act more normally. After his recovery, it was discovered that his character had changed. His scholastic ambitions were gone. His ambitions for a worldly career had disappeared, while his interest in games and sports had collapsed. All these things were replaced by a deep thirst for the religious life and by a continuous aspiration to spiritualize himself. Because he believed that these changes took their root in the kiss which the Mohammedan woman fakir had bestowed on him, Meyer approached the old lady for advice about his future. She directed him to find a spiritual teacher. He inquired where this boon was to be obtained. She waved her hand vaguely into space for a reply. He visited several holy men of repute in the locality, and then he went farther afield to the villages within 100 miles of his native Pune. One day, he walked into a little stone-built temple near Sakori, Sakori. It was a poor, humble shrine, but it was the abode of a very holy man. Or so the villagers said. And so when Meyer came face to face with Upasani Maharaj, he felt that he had found his master. The young aspirant for holiness made periodic excursions from home to Sakori. He usually spent a few days at a time with his teacher, but once he remained there for 4 months. Meyer asserts that during this period he was being perfected, made ready for his mission. One evening he collected 30 of his old schoolmates and boyhood friends and gave them mysterious hints of an important meeting and brought them to the little temple in Sakori. The doors were locked, and Upasani Maharaj, the stern-looking holy man who lived there, rose and addressed the gathering. He spoke to them about religion, told them to seek virtue, informed them that he had made Meyer the spiritual inheritor of his own mystical powers and knowledge, and finally announced to the surprised young men that Meyer had attained divine perfection. He strongly advised them to become followers of their Parsi friend, for then they would receive great spiritual benefit, both in this life and in that to come. Some of his listeners took his advice and others remained skeptical. About a year later, when Meyer reached the age of 27, the young Parsi announced to a small flock that he had become conscious of a divine mission, which he was to carry out, and that God had given him a work of colossal importance to mankind. He did not straightaway reveal the precise nature of that mission, but within a few years he let the secret emerge. He was destined to become a Messiah. In 1924, Meyer left India for the first time. He embarked on a journey to Persia with a company of half a dozen disciples, telling them that he would tour the country of his ancestors. When the ship touched port at Bushire, Bushire, he suddenly changed his mind and left the place by the next homeward boat. 3 months later, rebel forces captured Tehran, the Persian capital, and disposed the old regime. A new Shah came to the throne. Meher Baba then turned to his followers and said, "Now you see the result of my mystic workings during my visit to Persia." His disciples told me that Persia was a happier land under the new ruler, and that Mohammedans, Zoroastrians, Jews, and Christians were living amicably together, whereas they had been in constant strife with cruel outrages among them under the old regime. Some years after this mysterious exclusion, Meher Baba began a curious educational institution. At his suggestion, a disciple purchased the colony's present site near the village of Arangaon. Several rough bungalows were constructed, together with many thatch and pole huts. A free boarding school was then declared open, and the teachers being recruited from the Parsis' educated disciples and the pupils from the families of devotees of their friends. No fees were charged for tuition, while even board and lodging were free. In addition to the usual secular subjects, there was special instruction in undenominational religion by Meyer himself. On such attractive terms, it was an easy matter to collect nearly 100 boys. A dozen of them arrived from distant Persia. The boys were taught the moral ideals, which are more or less common to most religions, and the life stories of the great prophets were unfolded to them. The class on religion gradually became the central feature of the curriculum, and Meher Baba led the older boys into a devotional mysticism, which appears to have been of a somewhat watery nature. They were taught to regard him as a sacred personage, even to worship him. A few boys began to manifest signs of religious hysteria in the sequence. Strange scenes occurred among them every few days. A noticeable feature of this unusual school was that the pupils belonged to varying castes, races, and creeds. Hindus, Mohammedans, Indian Christians, and Zoroastrians mingled freely, but Meher Baba wanted a still wider enrollment. He sent his chief disciple on a mission to England to find a few white students. The emissary, however, encountered much difficulty because the white parents were unwilling to entrust their children to a stranger who wanted to haul the latter off to a school in distant Asia. Moreover, the idea of a school combining all religions did not mean much to them. There are plenty of schools in England where pupils of different creeds foregather in a natural, spontaneous manner, without the fuss that is made of it in a creed-ridden country like India. One day, the emissary from India met an Englishman who straightway became converted to acceptance of the Parsi Messiah after a conversation or two. The man was possessed of an enthusiastic temperament, and having rapidly traveled through all the cults which honeycomb London, he was ready for what seemed to be the loftier message of Meher Baba. So he assisted the quest for white pupils and found 3 children whose poverty-stricken parents were willing to ease their own burdens at the price of parting with them. At this stage, the India office bestirred itself into activity, investigated the matter, took its official head, and put a ban on the project. The children did not sail. The representative of the Parsi Messiah returned to India accompanied by the Englishman and the latter's wife and sister-in-law. 5 or 6 months after their arrival, Meher Baba sent them back to England at the expense of his chief disciple. I learned from Meher that his object in founding the school was twofold. First, he wanted to break down the racial and religious barriers among the pupils. Secondly, he sought to train a select number of them as future ambassadors for his spiritual cause. When the years had sufficiently ripened them, and the time came for public announcement of his own mission, he would send them out to all the 5 continents to act as apostles and helpers in his destined work of spiritualizing mankind. Another activity developed into being alongside the school. A primitive hospital was opened, and ardent disciples were sent out to collect the blind, the ailing, and the crippled from the locality. The latter were given free medical treatment, food, and accommodation, while the Parsi holy man provided them with spiritual consolation. 5 lepers were cured by his mere touch, says an enthusiastic devotee. Alas, I am a trifle skeptical, for no one knows who they are, where they are, or how to find them now. 'Tis a piece of Oriental exaggeration, I fear. Surely one of the lepers would have attached himself to Meher Baba's train of disciples in sheer gratitude. Surely the news would have spread like a prairie wildfire across leprosy-ridden India, and all the stricken souls of the country would have eagerly flocked to the hospital near Arangaon. There grew up a large camp following of devotees, visitors, and hangers-on from the nearby villages. The population of this unusual colony reached into hundreds. Intense religious fervor pervaded the whole place, and Meher Baba was, of course, the center of the whole picture. 18 months after the colony was founded, it was suddenly closed down and all the activities were abandoned. The boys were sent back to their parents and the patients to their homes. Meher Baba vouchsafed no reason for this move on his part. I learned that sudden, inexplicable impulses of this kind were a regular feature of his conduct. In the spring of 1929, he sent out his first missionary disciple, a man named Sadhu Leek, L-E-I-K, who was bidden to go on a tour around India. The latter was told as a parting injunction, quote, "You have the advantage of a Messiah to work for. Be cosmopolitan and do not run down any religion. Be sure that I will know all about you. Do not be disheartened by the remarks of others. I will lead you, and follow none but me." End quote. From the information which I picked up, it was obvious that the poor fellow was physically unfitted for a wandering life. He was able to create a small following in Madras, but soon sickened on the way and then returned to die. Such is a rapid outline of the Parsi holy man's career. I've had several fugitive talks of a chatty nature with Meher Baba, but I want to hear something more definite about his self-appointed mission to the world. So I seek and obtain my final interview with him. He wears a soft blue scarf today, and the alphabet board rests upon his knees in readiness for our conversation. The disciples present The disciples present form an admiring audience and provide the requisite background. Everyone smiles at everyone else until I shoot a sudden question through the silence. How do you know that you are a Messiah? The disciples look aghast at my temerity. The master moves his bushy eyebrows. But he is not disconcerted, for he smiles at the inquiring Westerner, and he quickly answers. I know it so well. You know that you are a human being, and so I know I am a Messiah. It is my whole life. My bliss never stops. You never mistake yourself for some other person, so I cannot mistake who I am. I have divine work to do, and I will do it. What really happened when the Mohammedan woman fakir kissed you? Can you remember? Yes. Until then, I was as worldly as other youths. Hazrat Babajan unlocked the door for me. Her kiss was the turning point. I felt as though the universe was receding into space. I was left entirely alone. Yes, I was alone with God. For months I could not sleep, and yet I grew no weaker, but remained as strong as before. My father did not understand. He thought I was going mad. He called in one doctor and then another, and he gave me medicines, tried injections, but they were all wrong. I was with God, and there was nothing to cure. Only I had lost hold of normal existence, and it took me a long time to get back. Do you understand? Quite. Now that you have got back, when will you let the public know? My manifestation will appear in the near future, but I cannot give you an exact date. And then, my task on this earth will last for 33 years. Afterwards, I shall undergo a tragic death. My own people, the Parsis, will be responsible for my violent end, but others will continue my work. Your disciples, I presume? My circle of 12 selected disciples, of whom one will become a master at the appointed time. It is for their sake that I fast often and observe silence, for this wipes away their sins and will enable them to become perfect spiritually. They have all been with me in past births, and I am bound to help them. There will be an outer circle with 44 members. They will be men and women of lower spiritual grade. Their duty will be to assist the 12 chief disciples after the latter have attained perfection. There are other claimants to messiahship? Meyer laughed in deprecation of those absurd persons. Yes, there is Krishnamurti, Mrs. Besant's protege. The Theosophists deceive themselves. Their chief wire pullers are supposed to be somewhere on the Himalayas in Tibet. You will find nothing but dust and stones in their supposed abodes. Besides, no real spiritual teacher ever required someone else's body to be prepared and trained for his use. That is ridiculous. Other strange statements emerge from our final conversation. A curious jumble of assertions which come through slim fingers flickering from letter to letter. Quote, America has a great future. She will become a spiritually minded nation. I am aware of everyone who puts his faith in me, and he is always helped. Do not try to read my actions. You will never fathom them. Once I visit a place and stay there, however short a time, its spiritual atmosphere becomes greatly elevated. The general spiritual push that I shall give the world will soon put right all material problems, economic, political, sexual, sociological, for selfishness will be destroyed and brotherhood will replace it. Shivaji, the chieftain who built up the Maratha Empire in the 17th century, is also here. He points to himself. The meaning is that Maya is a reincarnation of Shivaji. Some of the planets are inhabited. They resemble this globe in culture and material advancement. But spiritually, our Earth is the most advanced. End quote. One observes that Meyer suffers from no modesty when discussing his claims. I am a little startled, however, when he communicates a command to me at the finish of the interview. Go to the West as my representative. Spread my name as that of the coming divine messenger. Work for me and my influence, and you will then be working for the good of mankind. The world will probably scout me as a madman, I reply uneasily, for such a task staggers my imagination. Meyer disagrees. I answer that nothing short of working a series of miracles will convince the West that anyone is a spiritual Superman, let alone a Messiah, and that since I cannot perform miracles, I cannot undertake the job of being his herald. Then you shall perform them, is his comforting assurance. I remain silent. Meyer misconstrues my silence. Stay with me, and I shall confer great powers on you, he urges. You are very fortunate. I will help you to obtain advanced powers so that you will render service in the West. It is unnecessary to describe the remainder of this incredible interview. Some men are born great, some achieve greatness, and others appoint a press agent. Meyer seems to favor the latter course. Next day, I prepare to leave. I have imbibed sufficient pious wisdom and prophetic forebodings to suffice me for the time. I have not wandered to distant parts of the world merely to hear religious assertions or declarations of grandeur. I want facts, even if they are to be facts of a strange, uncommon kind. And I want reliable evidence, better still something personal, something to which I can testify for my own satisfaction. My kit is packed. I'm about to leave. I go to Meyer and bid him a polite farewell. He informs me that within a few months he will be in residence at his central headquarters, which are situated near the town of Nasik, N-A-S-I-K. He suggests that I should visit him there and stay for a month. Do this. Come when you can. I will give you wonderful spiritual experiences and enable you to know the real truth about me. You will be shown my inner spiritual powers. After that, you will have no more doubts. You will be able to prove by your own personal experiences what I claim. Then you can go to the West and win many people for me. I decide to return at my leisure and spend a month with him. Despite the theatrical character of the Parsi holy man and the fantastic nature of his mission, I decide to investigate the whole thing with an open mind. A brief return to the stir of life, of city life in Bombay, and then I entrain for Pune. My wanderings around this ancient land are about to begin. The old Mohammedan holy woman whose sudden intervention started Maya Baba on his queer tangent engages my interest. I deem a short visit to her will not come amiss. I have already made a few preliminary inquiries about her in Bombay, where I learned from former Judge Khandwala, who has known her for 50 years, that her age is really about 95. I remember that Meyer's followers informed me that it is 130, but I generously ascribe this exaggeration to the heat of their enthusiasm. The judge briefly tells me her story. She is a native of Baluchistan, that vague territory situate between Afghanistan and India. She ran away from home quite early. After long and adventurous wanderings afoot, she arrived at Pune about the beginning of the century and has never moved from the city since. At first, she made her home under a neem tree, where she insisted on remaining in all seasons. Her reputation for sanctity and strange powers spread throughout the Mohammedan people in the vicinity, until even the Hindus came to treat her with due reverence. Some Mohammedans eventually built a wooden shelter under the tree for her, since she refuses to live in a proper house. This gives her the semblance of a home and provides some protection against the inclemencies of the monsoon season. I ask the judge for his personal opinion. He replies that he does not doubt, but that the Hazrat Babajan is a genuine fakir. The judge happens to be a Parsi, so I make some judicious inquiries about Meher Baba, who is well known to him. What I learn is unlikely to make me more favorable to the Parsi Messiah. I ask him finally about Upasani Maharaj, who is now the inspirer of Meher. My informant, a shrewd, discerning old man of vast experience in these and worldly matters, enters into a lengthy account of my own unfortunate contact with him. No, of his own unfortunate contact with him. I give 2 instances. Quote, Upasani has made ghastly mistakes. He once induced me to go to Benares, where he was staying at the time. After a while, I got a premonition of death and wanted to return to Pune, where my family was living. Upasani prevented me from going by repeatedly prophesying that everything would be all right. Nevertheless, 2 days later, I received a telegram saying that my son's wife had given birth to a child and that it died within minutes. In another case, Upasani told my son-in-law, who was thinking of going on the Bombay Stock Exchange, that such a move would prove extremely fortunate for him. Acting on this advice, he embarked on the exchange and was almost ruined. End quote. Judge Kandalawala impresses me with the independence of his outlook. He debunks Upasani Maharaj, whom Meher Baba has described to me as one of the greatest spiritual personalities of this age, yet he does not hesitate to admit that Meher himself is honest and really believes his spiritual attainment, although this attainment remains unproven. I reach Pune, put up at a hotel in the cantonment, and then drive straight to the abode of Hazrat Babajan, a guide who knows her personally and who will eke out my little Hindustani as an interpreter, accompanies me. We find her in a narrow street whose lighting is a quaint mixture of gaudy little oil lamps and electric globes. She lives in full view of passers-by upon a low divan, D-I-V-A-N. A fenced veranda rail separates it from the street. Above the wooden shelter rises the shapely outline of a neem tree, whose white blossoms make the air slightly fragrant. You must take off your shoes, my guide warns me. It is considered disrespectful to wear them when you enter. I obey him. With a minute later, we stand by her bedside. She lies flat on her back, this ancient dame. Her head is propped up by pillows. The lustrous whiteness of her silky hair offers a sad contrast to the heavily wrinkled face and seamed brow. Out of my slender store of newly learned Hindustani, I address a phrase of self-introduction to the old lady. She turns her aged head, stretches out a skinny, bony forearm, and then takes one of my hands in her own. She holds it tightly, staring up at me with unworldly eyes. Those eyes puzzle me. They seem to be quite uncomprehending, entirely vacant. She silently grips my hand for 3 or 4 minutes and continues to look blankly into my own eyes. I receive the feeling that her gaze penetrates me. It is a weird sensation. I do not know what to do. At last, she withdraws her hand and brushes her forehead several times. Then she turns to my guide and says something to him, but it is in the vernacular and I cannot grasp its meaning. He whispers the translation. He has been called to India, and soon he will understand. A pause, and then she croaks forth another sentence, but its meaning were better kept in my memory than in print. Her voice is extremely feeble. Her words emerge slowly and with much difficulty. It is possible that this aged and decrepit fleshly frame, Is it possible that this aged and decrepit fleshly frame, this haggard and huddled figure, contains the soul of a genuine fakir with wondrous powers? Who can say? It's not easy to read the pages of the soul by the letters of the body. But the woman is nearing her century. I have been warned that continued conversation with her is not permissible owing to her enfeebled condition. I prepare to withdraw quietly, strongly impressed by one thought. I think that the vacancy of her eyes is a signal that she is near the gate of death. The mind is parting from the worn-out body, but drags itself back, now and again, to pay feeble attention to this world through strange eyes. In the hotel, I sum up my feelings that some deep psychological attainment really resides in the depths of her being, I am certain. Respect rises unbidden within me. I find that the contact has diverted my normal thought currents and raised up an inexplicable sense of that element of mystery which surrounds our earthly lives, despite all the discoveries and the speculations of the scientists. I see with the unexpected clarity that those scientific writers who profess to reveal the fundamental secrets of the great world puzzle profess what is nothing more than surface scratching. But I cannot understand why a brief contact with the woman fakir should so sap at the very base of my confident mental certainties. The cryptic prophecy she made recurs to my mind. I am unable to grasp its meaning. No one has called me to India. Have I not gone freely of my own whim? Only now, as I write these things, long after the event, do I believe that I dimly begin to understand. 'Tis a strange world, my masters. And there's a footnote here, and he says in the footnote, I visited her again some months later. The impression of her near decease was confirmed. She died soon after. And that concludes Chapter 4. Chapter 5 will be called The Anchorite of the Adyar River. And I hope you'll join me there. And please Please like and subscribe, and till soon.